Okay, you may resume. We are in open session.
Thank you again. Mr. Moore, you had mentioned that you had some questions of staff and the board, things for us to consider, and questions for Dr. Campisi. Mr. Moore, would you please voice them now?
Okay, I've just noticed that there are a number of service-connected disability cases that make it through to the board from people who started working late in their careers and end up in the process of trying to get a service-connected disability. And I was wondering, after hearing the presentation on the pre-employment and post-offer medical exam process, that whether or not if we could look at the people flowing through that system and take the 10 positions that comprise the bulk of the pre-employment post-offer screenings and identify how many of those employees subsequently applied for a service-connected disability, and then whether or not it was approved as such, not approved, or maybe approved as a non-service connected disability. And the objective of the exercise and the questions that I asked in the written document that I sent to Bonnie that should be distributed to all the board members is whether or not we're doing, and when I say we, I'm talking collectively, the county does the screening, so they're on the front end, but we see the results of all of that on the back end. So I wanted to understand that the screening process actually is being effective in identifying people who may or may not end up in a position where they get a service-connected disability. And there's two impacts to that is, first of all, there's not first, but there is the cost. But first of all, in my mind, it's, are we taking in people who are subject to or have been identified as potentially being subject to getting a disability, and we're not identifying and mitigating those situations by changing the work environment, rotating the assignments, or doing something so that we don't end up hiring people and they end up disabled for the rest of their lives because of the work that they were doing. And so I just want to understand that we identify a group of people that either are okay or have some issues that we have to try to mitigate when we hire them. Is that being effective in hiring people and having them not get injured on the job?
Okay. Is there a comment, Mr. Boyd, Mr. Rice?
Well, we would, first of all, have to have staff review it. I'm not prepared to respond today. So we will have staff look at the questions posed by Mr. Moore.
Right. So
Vivian, I'd like to say something. Mr. Moore, I've been thinking that a long time. I'm glad you brought that subject up, and I'm not sure what the situation is under hiring, but I think it's an excellent point, and I think we should really look at that for long-term value. Thank you so much for bringing it up.
So thank you for supporting that request.
Mr. Rice?
Can I make a comment?
Oh,
Okay.
Dr. Campisi.
I mean, Mr. Moore is raising a very complicated, complex issue, but it's a real issue that I've also encountered through these years when I've reviewed so many cases of application for disability. First consideration that I've expressed also in the past is, in the average, we spend 20% of our time working, 80% of our time not working. And so the issue is always, that comes up very frequently, is the injuries or the injury or the injuries claimed by the claimant related to work or related to the process of aging, regular process of aging. And we deal with this every month, we deal with this issue. The second issue that is raising is extremely important, and that is particularly in certain types of jobs that are very demanding on the body and on the psyche of people. In my estimate is that not an adequate evaluation is performed, for example, in screening in the police forces, screening psychologically police, member of the police force, or even in the fire department. I mean, these are very strenuous, difficult jobs. And I think that probably a much more refined process in the recruitment phase of these individuals might go a long way in preventing psychological injuries, physical injuries, and so on and so forth.
Vice Chair Gray, point
I
of order.
understand. I know, point of order. This discussion should be agendized. Is that what you were going to say, Mr. Rice?
Yes, it's good to get Dr. Campisi's comments at this point, given his retirement.
Yeah.
But now, Mr. Moore's comments were part of good of the order. That's not an opportunity for extensive discussion, so we should reserve further comment for when this item can be agendized.
I agree. I just wanted Dr. Campisi to make his comments because we will not have him again. However, I think Mr. Boyd made a point that staff needs to review these and discuss it, and we will get an answer, and it will be agendized. I think that's the best way to proceed. And Mr. Boyd, I assume that you will let Bonnie know when is a good time to agendize this issue.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we will move into closed session again, please.